Zippity-doo-dah, zippity. I had a mega dose of vitamin C. Yeah, I feel wonderful. Yes, I do, because I had a big dose of vitamin C. So should you. Actually, I don't give up medical advice. You do as you see fit. Consult your doctor. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to use this as a prop up. It's a block of beeswax. I made a video a couple of days ago on silver because people have been telling me to make a video on silver, and I actually know about silver and gold investing. I mean, I haven't done it for ages, but I've read many books back in the day, and I actually physically did. Of course, you don't invest in silver because its return on investment is like the worst imaginable. But one thing I saw, since I read every comment, is that people were talking about value versus asset. And I like people to participate, and I do read every comment, and people see other people's comments, and they talk back and forth, and that's very healthy. It's way better than watching any of the three news channels, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's just a bunch of talking losers that you can't respond to, and I read every comment, and I like people to respond, and if you think you want to correct me on something, let me know. I don't pretend. I don't play the stock market. I don't pretend to be an investor. I don't play an investor on TV. But I noticed people were making some, rather obtuse and illogically incorrect comments. And someone was saying, "Oh, there's another YouTube video," and I've actually seen that. It was made a few years ago. A guy was like, he had a huge bar of gold or something like that, or maybe it was silver. I think it was a huge bar of silver. I can't remember. But he was only calling it bullion, and he's like, "I'll trade you that $2 candy bar for this bar of bullion." And of course, people don't know the definition of bullion. If you actually said precious metal, then people are like, "Oh yeah, great," because people are generally not that bright. So he actually, a bunch of people on the street, we say, "Hey, I'll trade you that worthless piece of whatever it is for this bullion bar." And most people don't know what bullion is, okay? I say someone in the comments section was unintelligently making reference. But look at this guy couldn't even trade a $3,000, whatever it was, bar of bullion for a $2 candy bar. And that's just because he was using the word bullion, but everybody knows what precious metal is. We have to talk about relative value versus absolute value in assets. And tell me where I've left anything out on this. And of course, relative value is value ascribed to something by the demos, sort of the people. Value, of course, is fundamentals that keep you alive, safe, and fed, and shelter, for example. Relative value, of course, is based on needs. A guy in the desert with a backpack full of gold, he'd trade all the gold for a canteen full of water. So, a guy with water in a stable situation, where everybody has water, can't, sell it, can't get rid of it, and nobody wants it. In the case of Florida down there, where the power went out and there was a lot of issues, gas was an unstable place in Florida. My neighbor said, because the gas stations need electricity to run, said she had to wait in line for 6 hours to get gasoline, a few days after the hurricane hit. Because all the gas pumps are out because they require electricity. I heard that in northern parts of Alaska, snowmobiles, because that's what everybody uses for everything, are literally money. Like if you got a spare snowmobile, like, oh man, I got to hire. You trade labor, an extra snowmobile for labor. You could trade a snowmobile for money. You could trade a snowmobile for food. It is literally, even though a snowmobile is huge, you can't carry it in your pocket. I mean, it has incredible. Try selling you probably have a brand new $20,000 snowmobile in Florida, where no one uses them, and you couldn't basically give hey, I got a brand new $20,000 snowmobile here. You want it? Nah. So, relative value. I've kind of made that point abundantly clear. Assets and investments. I'm not an investor. I don't pretend to be. Say assets about return on investments. What else could we actually say about assets? Investments. I didn't want to focus too much on investments, but all about return on investment, where you're actually trying to have a hedge against inflation. You're trying to outperform the market, where your money is depreciating every day, especially now that the Fed is printing money. assets, generally so, safe havens, stable mediums to stick things in. I basically, what little money I have all of it in land. I have like 20 ounces of silver that I bought like 25 years ago, uh, down in the basement. But I'm not, I don't have any gold, and that's only like $600 worth of silver, actually $500 worth of silver. So I don't have any of those assets. I do have other assets that, considering the way things are going, I've actually put money into, and I've talked about this before. It's like Defcon level. Did you know, by the way, we're in Defcon 3 right now, the United States? Defcon levels of money. People say, what do you call money? Paper is useless. People say silver always has value and so does gold. This is true, but only up to a point. When people are starving and they're worried about protection and stuff, there's never been, and people keep telling me this over and over again, there's never been a point in history where gold and silver have had no value. They've always had value. And that is basically accurate. But in a genuine poop-it's the fan situation, what is important is the same thing every government on earth is interested in. I'll get to that in a second. The important thing is food, things that keep you alive. Survival assets. Survival assets, I'll let you figure this is covered in rubber. This is a lead ball. Survival assets. Lead, I'll let you figure out what lead is. Like copper-coated, copper-jacketed lead, encased in brass, propelled by potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal. Survival assets would be lead, gold, silver, food, land. Having things, and I keep telling this to people, they say, I got a bunch of gold and silver. It's like, well, good. That's wonderful. Fort Knox is surrounded by the world's largest tank division, the Fort Knox Army base there. Having something and being able to hold on to it are two different things. I got gold and silver. I was like, good. Do you have anything to protect it with? Like, look, I got a bunch of gold and silver, and then someone comes up and, clubs you on the back of your head and takes your gold and silver, and probably worse. Having it and holding it are two different things. So survival assets, lead, gold, silver, food, land, water filtration, knife, fuel. Some places you're not allowed to have what I call bang sticks. Let social media try to figure that out, the algorithms, when I say bang sticks. Many countries you're not allowed to have. I also, too, find a great disdain and disgust, and it makes me want to barf that any country is afraid of their own citizens having their ability to defend themselves. It's completely ludicrous, and that's my personal position. You could hate it all you want, but I don't believe in any country that doesn't believe in the ability of the citizens' right to self-defense. Every animal on earth has that right. Bees have their stingers. Bears have their claws and their fangs. Human beings don't have much, so we actually do need those things. By the way, governments don't ultimately exist. People talk about governments. They said democracy, socialism, I'm not interested in talking about government at all, but these are, of course, nothing other than agreements among the people. Everybody talks about the government as if it is something, and it is not. It's just a bunch of people, and most of them are spineless D-bags. They really are. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. I know there's an enormous amount of tyranny in the United States. I know that. I'm not interested in talking about politics at all. I'm not interested in discussing it. But any and every government on earth exists only so long as people agree that they still serve the people. In cases where it exists and they don't agree, it's because people are spineless and they're toothless and clawless. I'll let you figure that one out. By the way, the coin of the realm for every government is two things. Primarily, it's just one thing. It's force. Force and the tools of force. The other of the government, of course, is land and genuine assets like gold and lead. People, as much as I'm not an anarchist, by the way, as much as I have no respect for any government on earth, some are way better than others. I mean, this I very well know. Everybody keeps complaining about the United States. It's like, well, where else would you rather live? Every place has got its good points and other places got its bad points. I'm kind of in love with the First and Second Amendment, though. I greatly enjoy both the freedom of speech and the freedom to be an autonomous individual with my own right to self-defense. I pay my taxes, which I shouldn't have to pay taxes. You know, I don't break the law, and I'm a good person, and those are my rights, that which my forefathers, countless ones, and as well as yours, fought and died for. So those are my inalienable rights. You could say they're being taken away. You could say that just fine. I know about everything that's going on, just the same as you, but those are my damn rights. Relative value. Value, of course, we talked about things are ascribed by the people. But we need to think like governments, because the coin of the realm for the government has always been force. If things go really, really south in this world, all the silver and all the gold and all the land are not going to do anything for anybody. Having something and being able to keep it or another. Someone be like, oh, I've got 1,000,000 acres and a mansion on it. It's like, good, how are you going to keep it? You know, if the poo really hits the fan, how are you going to keep it? Governments all do this. They hoard land and they exercise force and the tools of force. I'm not interested in exercising force upon anybody. Never have been, never will be, but I certainly believe in defense, and it is a fundamental, universal, inalienable right, regardless of any government, regardless what you think, regardless of your mom or sister thinks. It is an inalienable right of defense. Force is, of course, twofold: offensive force and defensive force. But I'd like to hear your thoughts about assets versus value. Value, of course, is relative. Assets are of different types. Fundamentally, if everything's fine, you know, currency, land, cash, so long as the cash has value behind it, which of course we all know what the Fed is doing on printing money. By the way, the Defcon level, which I failed to get to, is of three types. Plastic, meaning credit cards, loans, plastic, paper money. Defcon levels. That'd be Defcon 4, Defcon 3. Defcon 2 would be gold and silver. Defcon 1 is lead. It always has been. Of course, you know, in caveman times, this was the caveman version of lead. You know, like, ugh! You know, whacking somebody on the back of the head. Now it's lead. And of course, the government has a different type of lead. Actually, like in tank rounds, is depleted uranium, which has many of the same properties of lead. Depleted uranium. And then a step above that is fissionable uranium and plutonium. But in a poo hits the fan situation, all the gold and all the silver and all the land is not going to avail anybody. It's the same thing every government knows and everybody with a half a brain knows. It's force. I don't care whether you agree with that or not. It's just the way the world works and the way it is. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about assets versus value. And you know, we need to talk about, you know, survival assets. And people need to think in their own minds, like, well, if the poo hit the fan, you know, my farm has got like a cave on it with tons of flowing water. Yeah, so I got no issue with water or water filtration. You know, if you lived in the desert, say somewhere in the Badlands of Death Valley, California, and you needed a survival asset, I would think it would be huge jugs of distilled water. That way I can, you know, flee to somewhere and I have the water, or if I need to stay in place, you know, I am not going to die of thirst. So we're talking about relative value. But ultimately we're talking about survival assets. Lead, gold, silver, food, non-perishable food. Those Mountain House meals are the best, by the way. People say, that's not good food for you. It's not good for you. Survival is not about eating healthy. It's about staying alive. It shocks me every time I hear that from people. Say, why are you hoarding Mountain House meals for survival food? That's not good for you. I say, no, it's not. It's about staying alive. It's not about eating a super fine, you know, ultra healthy meal. You know, picking up all the fruits and veggies at the local farmer's market. It's a survival situation when you're talking about giving yourself calories for survival. People need to think about that. Nobody ever thinks about water filtration. Most places of the world, there is water, water, water everywhere. But you can't drink it without getting like violently sick. Water filtration. Everybody should get water filtration. Made countless videos on water filtration. So relative value versus assets versus survival assets. And just realize that in the Defcon levels, it goes plastic, paper, gold, silver, and then lead. That's the reason why every government on Earth hoards one thing. Above all else, generally most do. Even old gentle Sweden. Even gentle Norway and Iceland. Force and the tools of force. Because to have something and to be able to hold on to it are two different things entirely. I got a bunch of gold and silver. Good for you. How are you going to hold on to it? I never thought about that. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I love reading every comments, especially ones that are well thought out. Thank you, and have a lovely weekend. Goodbye.